It is 7:30 on a Thursday night, so y'all know what that means. It's time to write some code. Gonna be working on a library that I've been doing some development on for a little bit here, trying to get a system in place so that I can build games for game jams faster. Am still mostly practicing at this whole streaming thing. It's actually only my second stream, and the first one got deleted, so this is really my first stream. The Yeah, the point of this thing is just to kind of get myself used to being on camera and talking to people while I'm writing code, all that good stuff. But the point of the whole stream is to get people who are working on hobby projects to kind of come together, talk about them, be social, share what they're working on, that sort of thing. Because this is kind of an isolating experience to, come home from a day job and then just launch into writing more code. As much fun as it is, it's much more fun with other people. So I'm just going to put on some music and hopefully you enjoy. Don't forget, there is the first version of Brothers Code, or first, I guess, broadcast of Brothers Code on Sunday at 7 a.m. My brother, who lives across the seas in Europe, is going to be getting online, and we're going to be working on his game together. So if you haven't seen this on the Pretty Simple Fun Twitter, go check it out. It's pretty sweet. He's building an elemental simulation game that uses shaders to do a whole bunch of complicated math involving heat transfer and flowing liquids and all sorts of stuff. The kind of things that you can see here are there's flowing water that comes down from the top and then steam that rises and they mix with each other. And anyway, it's pretty cool. You'll hear more about it then. So tonight, let me turn on this thing here. Tonight I'm going to jump right back into Harmony and see if I can get the trigger system working. One sec, my music decided to stop. There we go. All right, so it's a quick refresher, I guess, since the last one didn't get broadcast, nobody would be able to go and find context for this. But Harmony is a library that lets me build these state machines and data flow in order to drive game objects in Unity. And it should just really speed things up. It's basically the animator system put together with a something that I built before, but it's basically a value propagation system that allows you to put values through different filters and different output effects in order to basically program visually, but without some of the restrictions that come in a language like Unreal's Blueprint system. So tonight I'm going to add, if you can see that there's a little true written right there, it's probably too small to be visible, but all these transitions that occur between these different states they're just set to true. So they always occur and they occur immediately. I want to make these editable and make some little tags using a custom editor that I built. So the thing I need to do first is get in to the code and see kind of where I was. So let me see if I can pick that up. All right, I think I was working on drawing these transitions because I think it just builds this right now. So I think this is supposed to be recursive, but I need to calculate the bounding boxes as I'm going. So that way I can actually click on these labels, because if it's just doing everything ad hoc here, that's not going to work so well. But I'm going to try and hack something in first and see just how well that works, and then go from there. So I think I'm probably going to need... Oh, that's right. This is the piece I was at. When I draw this transition, I need to have it... be offset from the center in such a way, because this line actually goes from here to here, so the middle is right there. But that's a problem because that doesn't really look like the middle because these two blocks are bigger, and if this tree expands at all, then I'm gonna run into problems spacing it around everything else. So what I'd really like to do... Oh, I need to turn that off for selection right now. So if I'm clicking on the background and dragging the stuff around, probably shouldn't be able to do that while I'm having a wire selected. By the way, I'm sad that I lost the last recording because that was when I implemented this wire selection piece. It wasn't super hard or anything, but it was kind of a soft introduction. So So I have this wire selection thing working, but I can currently drag the background while I'm selecting a wire, which probably is not the greatest. Probably should have to deselect the wire first. Just like with these things, if I click and drag on there, on these states, you can't do that. Same thing on here, you can't do that. So, all right, so what was I saying? So I need to store these tags, store an offset for these tags from the center so that I can then draw a little squiggle down to the middle to label that this is the transition expression, and then I need to add some bounding boxes so that I can actually do context menus and stuff that respect this. So, because I have these context menus that, yeah, hopefully you can see, there you go, that show up. So if I right click a state, I can say, oh, I'm going to create a transition from this state, and it's going to go somewhere. Or I can add a new, well, in this case I already have both of the scripts that exist, but I can add or remove scripts from it, and then I can just delete the state itself. But this doesn't have anything right now. Now it just allows me to make brand new stuff in the graph here, which, all right, so I got a bunch of code to write, so let's launch into this. Okay, let's see. Right now it just draws a transition expression, so I should probably do the thing that calculates, I should add the data that stores where that is first and then get that to draw before I actually do any of the rest of this. So editor transitions are stored here. We just need a, I'm going to keep it in absolute position. Just going to call this doesn't need to have a whole rect. See, because the advantage of giving it a whole rect is that if I pre-calculate this, then the transition expression can just draw within it. But the challenge then is if I edit the expression and add pieces within it, then I have to recalculate the rect. Because the way that I did each of these, I kind of cheated and just said, hey, you can resize them. So whatever size you want it to be, that's the size that it is. So I could do that for each of these labels, and then each label would say, because it has this whole branching hierarchy through it, basically each label would be assigned a single cell in there. I know there's an algorithm for doing this kind of layout. I wonder if I should just use that algorithm. Probably at some point, but it's kind of, it feels like overkill. It feels like overkill for this. So what do I do here? Oh, the thing I really need is this anchor, so I'm just going to stick with that. All right, when I first create a transition, which is helpfully labeled right there, let's say, so from and to are known at this point, so I should be able to call editor transition points. So I'm going to use a function I wrote last time to actually grab these points and then compute their average. And say that the initial anchor position is that. Okay, so now we have the start of the expression anchor. Now we're gonna have to be able to grab the expression anchor and drag that around, which means it's going to need a draggable object. I think I can do that. Yeah. Select. Oh, it's right. It's called pick, I think. Yep. So I have these more complicated ones for picking the cells points. In this case, I want to editor wire points. Right. Right. Wires are more complicated than transitions because wires have to find out which port they're actually a part of. I was going to make that more simple by caching this stuff on load, but I won't do that right now. So we'll say pick. Come on, lo-fi hip hop. A little loud even to me. Have it like down at 2%. Oh well. Oh wait, I think I know what I can do. Hang on. Perfect. Okay. So I'm gonna go to pick editor transition points. In this case, I don't care about any of this. Transition expression anchor is where it actually... No, that's actually not where it is, because there is this concept of... There's this offsets. Oh, it has a graph position that's going to include that. That's fine, right? Yeah. Okay, this is all expressed in graph position. Graph position, it's kind of weird keeping all the different positions straight. There's graph position, and then screen position, and window position, and then like app position for all these things have basically different things to do with the mouse, or different ways the mouse is understood, or just different coordinate systems. So the coordinate system that I'm working in right now is the infinite panel of the world that all of these states and different objects live in. So all I need to say is, hey, if the expression anchor is nearby, then is under some threshold. Let's say 10. Right, I should use a constant that I use elsewhere that's important. It is editor utility dot line editor helper. Nope. What the heck is that thing called? There we go. Editor GUI utility single line height. That's what we're going to use. Oh, and of course it's not. Of course it isn't. Okay. Go through each of these transitions. That's not actually what we want. We want pick editor expression anchor. Check this. If that's true, then nope. I really having a really tough time with the autocomplete today. No, that's null. Okay. So now it will pick one of those. Now I feel like we should probably also draw something there. So let's do that. So down where it's actually drawing these transitions, we're going to... Actually, yeah, we should draw these first. What do I use to draw the ports? That's what I called it. Editor utility. Draw port is a handles.wireDisk, and that's the outside, I suppose. Okay. That goes elsewhere. So there's this piece. And we're going to draw it at the expression anchor in that size. So these transitions that already have it won't have an expression anchor in the correct place. So I'm going to have to recreate those. Otherwise, they're just going to draw at 0. Oh shoot, and I think that they may also need to be offset. Yeah, they're going to need to be offset because this piece, they're going to draw way off somewhere else. Okay. Ooh, well, that's new. So that gave me an exception when I was trying to render it. So I deleted the left transition first and then the right transition, which the right transition was created second, so it's at 1 in the list, which means that after deleting the first one, that list wasn't rebuilt properly or indices weren't updated. I bet things still reference it by index. Yeah, that means that when I delete transition, because everything's referenced by index, I have to go through every transition afterward and update all of their indices. That sucks. Especially when I'm batch removing transitions, this is going to be a problem. All right, let's do the single removal first. So everything that references these has to have their indices updated. What databases mostly do to get around this is this is the reason you never remove things from databases generally. You just mark them as inactive because updating all of these indices is a huge pain. But the only place that I reference transitions by index, actually, I can know this because I have a special type for them. So wherever editor transition is used, sorry, not editor transition index. So the transitions themselves need to have their index updated. And That's not the reference I was looking for. This one. Transitions in and out of states is the only place, and the editor transitions themselves. I wonder if wires have the same problem. No, wires are referenced. That's right. Wires are still referenced directly. How did I get around that? I think wires need to be split out to the other method at some point. It's just that they were working for whatever reason, and transitions, right, transitions references weren't. They were getting mixed up. So I needed to, yeah, I needed to make them actual integer references. All right, so this is gonna be a pain. So let's go through. I can make it go through each one. I can just make a function to do this. So the function could take a list or just a single index. If I'm removing just a single index, then it's much more efficient not to do a loop over. Let's create a temporary array. All right, fine. Remove transition at. So we're gonna split out its own little single function, and after writing the single one, I'll go and I'll write the one that takes an array. The array purpose will be when I'm removing states to delete all of their reference transitions cleanly. So these clean the states. It's the only place that this particular transition should be referenced. However, all of the transitions afterward are also going to need to be cleaned up. So now that it's been removed, we have to go starting at index to remove. And then so all these should have been offset by 1. So they'll all be 1 higher than they need to be. So transitions I, in this case, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go look at their states. Yeah, because those will be the only references. So the first thing we need to do is we need to update this. Make sure that's correct. And then we need to go in here and we need to do substitutions for each of those. So basically just this. So grabbing that state. This is going to make this code cleaner if I just change this out. Okay. I'm using another iterator. Okay. So in the subindex or sublist here, that is the list of transitions in the state that this transition is coming from. I'm going to go through and update each of those. So this states in the index list j if this value is yeah, I gotta update these one at a time. I was thinking I might be able to go update all of them at once, but no, I have to update only the ones that equal because that way, oh shoot, but I also have to update them in order. Okay, so here's the problem. If I go through and like, let's say it's the 7th one in the list that gets removed. Okay, so that means 8 now moves down to 7. So all of the references that were previously 8 in these different states need to be updated to 7. Oh, but that's fine. If I go through it forward, this is fine because I'm deleting. My worry was that sometimes when you do these kinds of iterative updates, you end up in a weird state in the middle where some of them are updated, some of them are not, and the code will basically get tripped up by itself. It'll think that something hasn't been updated when it actually has, and then apply the update function again. That's super common in code like this. So here, we're just going to say, hey, if this index is equal to the old transition index, use this to be more clear. I'm going to leave this as transition index because this debug statement should disappear, and I prefer to make debug statements not rely on the internal code if at all possible, because even if they're slower, it doesn't matter because they get removed. And that way they stay kind of independent, and you don't have to worry about coding around them too much. Okay, so if that is the old index, then set it to the new index. Be super clear about that. So this is date from okay, so the transition's out and the transition's in. If it's the old index, set it to the new index. This reference list automatically gets updated in this state, so that's correct. So if I call this function to remove the transition, then it will update all of the transition indices. So that's right. Now I just need to, this data here is actually corrupted because this one's got the wrong transition index. So I can force it to reload the correct transition index by opening this editor again. Oh hey, it didn't even save because it had that exception. So now if I delete, is this correct? Yes, if I delete this one, hey, it should be okay. Look at that, it works just fine. All right, now I'm going to, let's close the editor. I'm gonna open it back up again. Unfortunately, it did not save. So I think that there is That's correct. I didn't have this should write set. Yeah, I got repaint, but not should write. There you go. Should write equals true. And then ditto here. All right. Reload that code. Delete that. Okay, it wrote it because I got the references update. Close that tab. Open the editor again. Hey, and this time, look at that. No transition. So let's go look at the actual editor asset contents and see what's going on. So in this case, editor transitions, it has one transition of type true that goes from state 0 to state 2. State 2. That doesn't seem right, because I only have this state and this state. Let's see what states I actually, what states this thing thinks I have. So this thing, oh, this thing put my enter state at state 1. Okay, that's fine. Weird, but sure. So that's working then. Okay. In this case, so now I can delete both of these. Right, and I got here because I needed to create this transition. This is the entire reason I was doing this. You can see right here, I got that little circle to draw. Magic. Okay, but my work is still not done, because even though I'm able to delete one transition at a time and have it be fine, if I were to set both of these transitions back up and then delete this, hello, and then delete this state, why can't I drop you? There we go. Apparently there's still something going on there. If I were to delete this state, then it would cause another problem because it's not correctly updating the references it won't update them in enter or in this state, the final state over there. I gotta add renames to that too. That reminds me. Anyway, so let's go in here. So remove transition at is okay. The next one that I need is remove transitions. Which will be like this, but more complicated. So, because it's going to remove all of these. So the first thing we need to do, because we need to remove them in reverse order. And will the same logic apply where what I'm thinking is with multiple removals simultaneously if the same collapsing logic applies. Well, I am going down, but in this case I have the potential to, so like let's say I remove 5 and 6. Does this example work? Yeah, let's say I remove 5 and 6 and then I have a 7 and 8. If I remove these two both drop down. However, if I drop, let's say I drop this one down to this place, when it goes in and it updates the other one, it's going to look at the wrong reference and then update that one down, so I'll end up with 2 at the same index. Or I'll end up just moving the reference to the wrong place. So I think I actually need to do them, the easiest thing is to do them one at a time from highest to lowest, which I can just do by calling the other function. So I'm going to do that because that's easy. So is there a reverse? Guess not. Actually, it might be because it doesn't, oh yeah, it doesn't return that. Hey, look at that, it's got a reverse. Okay, that wasn't so bad. So I just need to remove them in reverse order, or order from highest to lowest. Does it actually matter? No, because I'm doing the update one at a time. So that doesn't even matter. I just removed them. Easy. So in the case where I remove states, okay. So I need to remove all of my input transitions. Let's just do it this way. All right, this is me thinking, in remove transition at, we should probably do a test here. Before we do any of these to see if it's still referencing the transition that's being removed, in which case we need to set it to invalid. So this is that is the index, and the update here. And this is why I have this as an enum, so that I can set it to just a named value. So this is a trick that I showed last time, but the video got deleted, which is basically a lot of these values, I declare them as enums and do all the extra work of typecasting them to an int whenever I need them to be an int, so that converting from one to another is not a type safe operation. That makes it so that I don't get mixed up between indices that are all just integers but have different meanings, because they can often overlap a lot and then make things hard to debug. So in this case, editor state index means something very specific. It's the index in the list of states when the editor is running that have all the editor data. Because I also have a state index, which you can see down here, which is when it's compiled down to the actual final version, what is its index. And those can be different because I want to reorder those based on when they're used, or maybe there are states or aren't states in different different kinds. Like the enter state over here is an editor state, but it's not actually a state in the running application. So I delete it, but that means that I can't that means that an index in the editor and an index in the game don't mean the same thing. Anyway, what was I saying? So that's why I use these enums, and you just saw an example of what makes this super handy, as I can say, hey, this index is now just invalid, and that is a really obvious thing in the debugger. It's really obvious when you're trying to figure out why stuff doesn't work. And it's going to let me write a little bit of safety code here. Editor index, editor state index. Nope. See, I did it right here. State index doesn't work. A transition index. There you go. Okay, so where this is called is from up here. So it's going to remove all these transitions, and in the process of doing so, it will set their indices to invalid, which I can check here. Just say transition index.invalid. So, because based on what we just did, there should be no transitions to remove in this piece. They should all just be invalid now. So I'm going to surround this by if editor, because this is just for debug. And then now we get to delete the state, which is correct. But there's an editor state index though. So this will mean I need to do the exact same thing for removing editor states. I can't believe I forgot to do this. So, because now I got to go through and remove all of the editor states, pretty much doing the exact same thing. In this case, updating the reverse. I'm going to update all the transitions. Now, what did I say reference transitions? It was just other states. Is that right? I felt like there was something else. Oh, and then in the transition itself, of course, which I believe I update. Yeah, update that right here. Okay, so this code is just going to get copied and do the exact same thing. Delete editor state menu function. And this is why when I first wrote this, I just used references for everything because the JSON serializer that I use automatically converts references correctly, and it makes it really nice because you don't have to do any of this because memory locations are managed by the OS. But in this case, that's right, I wanted the serialized form to be more readable, and this is the price that I pay. I think also more debuggable because when you hold references, sometimes weird things occur with reference counting, and I think I was getting a bug from that. Right, I was getting a bug from that that was hard for me to track down because I didn't know which one of various states were getting referenced, and it was just super unreadable. So I converted everything over to doing this, which made my compile easier, but unfortunately that also gave me a lot more work to do. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay. States. Just gonna replace all of this transition stuff. Okay. Things that reference an editor state. Are only that state's transitions. So I actually don't need to do any of this. I would need to do this, except that there's nothing that references it. So I'll just leave a little to-do here. Oh, it's not even a to-do, just a note. If anything uses editor state index other than the transitions that are into or out of this state, we need to update those references here. But right now that's not the case. So we're actually good. And that should just work. Let's see if the compiler agrees. It doesn't like this. Perfect. Transition selection removes that index. And now we should be good. Okay, we're almost back to the point where we can keep writing real code. Cool. It's got that stuff set up. Let's go back and let's do a quick commit here since I got this stuff going. So you guys can see I use the GitHub built-in repository thing. I think it's pretty cool. I used to use the Atlassian one. This thing's called SourceTree, but it's a little finicky. It supports more stuff than the Git one does, but I've had it delete things on me before, and I was not happy. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Saving our work. Excellent. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be right back. You guys hang tight. All right, I'm back. Did you miss me? We're going back to coding, and for some reason my monitor here text got really small. Let's see if I can fix that. Normally I don't code with text that's this huge, but it doesn't really show up well on stream otherwise. So if you're just joining, my name is Carl, and I make video games. I am trying to set up a stream where people come and talk to each other, hang out, show what they're working on, that sort of thing. And in lieu of that, maybe just ask questions about Unity. I've been a developer for, oh gosh, like 5 years now. Wow, 5 years, yeah. And at least in Unity, I've been building games for about 20 years. The thing that I'm working on right now is it's a little library called Harmony that is I'm going to use it to make games faster in my spare time, basically. It's not meant for production stuff too much. It's mostly meant to just make it easier for me to spit logic onto the computer. And there's kind of two pieces to it that I'm working on right now. The state machine setup up here, and then this data flow part down here. And I haven't shown it this stream, but I should show at some point what it actually does. So let's just do that now. So I'm going to delete this transition here, and we should get, actually I'm going to delete this as well. So what this logic is telling it to do is after you enter this program, and you're going to have many entry points, but I'm getting ahead of myself, you will transition to this state here, which has a couple of simple scripts on it. It has set variable to time. It says it's going to set the clock variable to the current time. And then this transition after delay is kind of what I'm working on. I'm making it transition from state to state. But that doesn't work at all yet. So we're just ignore that. But if we go in here and we look in my testing file, you can see the set variable to time script is actually, it's just this. It's super short. And just by writing one of these that derives from script, it will appear in a little list here, which I can, if I can drop my state, there we go. So it'll appear in these little lists to allow you to manipulate whether or not that that script is on this state. So what this says is, hey, every update tick into this entity writes the variable that is specified in the editor to the current time. That's it. But then the kind of magic piece is this set down here, which is the data flow, where what this one does, it says, hey, I'm going to read a float variable from myself that is clock, which is the same variable that's being set up here. And whatever value is currently in it, I'm going to spit it out onto the world. And right now I output that variable onto the Y position or the Y input of this position object. So if you can see those things, read float variable is this little script, which I can run through how this works in a little bit, but you can see it's pretty short. All it does is just, hey, I'm reading a value, and if I actually can read that value, then I'm setting that value on the output. The position is even simpler. It just has a few inputs, which are labeled by attributes here. Then from each of these, it will attempt to set the transform's position components using just every frame using the update function. One of the super cool things about this is that the Unity object references are serialized along with the structure of this code, and then it's kind of all compiled down into a runtime form. So it allows you to do things you can't do with other editors, particularly the animator or sometimes even your own code. It can be hard to kind of set this all up, and it lets you just drag and drop a reference to something in your prefab for whatever you're attaching this script to. So anyway, long explanation to get to, if I hit the play button, this cube is going to move up. And this cube is moving up because its Y position is being set to the current time. If I go back into my circuit editor and I attach this clock value to X, then when I run the program, my cube moves up and right because its clock value is being attached to both X and Y. So the piece that I'm trying to get working is I have this second clock value over here and a second clock value over here, that what I want it to do is I want to create a transition here where after a delay of 5 seconds, it will set the variable. So for the first 5 seconds, it will set the variable clock to 0 through 5. And then that will set this value, which then sets the Y position, so it's going to go up. And then I just realized something that's broken in my head. The idea is then it will, after 5 seconds, it will transition to this next state, which will set the second clock value to the current time. And the second clock value over here is mapped to the X position. Now, even if the transitions were working properly, what I just realized is that this actually doesn't quite do what I want, because what I want it to do is I want it to go up and then I want it to go over. However, the current time is already 5 seconds by the time it gets to here. So what's actually going to happen is it's going to go up and it's going to jump to 5 and then keep going over, which honestly, if the transition worked, that would just be great. And this is just, I just need to change set variable to time to set variable to time and state, which would be a great thing to write once transitions work. So the piece that I'm trying to write right now is the piece that allows me to draw this little anchor down here so that I can drag this around so that I can, let's see, I need the anchor because I need to create an expression tree on each of these transitions that I want to have not on a separate editor. I want to have them in the graph itself so it is very obvious what they're connected to. And then in order to draw that tree, the tree has to be drawn at a position, and the position just being calculated by the computer is not great. So I want the user to be able to say, hey, I'm going to drag this little expression tree over here and orient it this way. That's where my tree goes. Draw it here, please. But in order to do that, I have to write all the code for this myself because I created this whole little window. Unity has a built-in node graph drawer that is okay, I guess. It's not, it works. And so some of the inspiration for this came from Clack, and this guy named Kaijiro does a just insane, just absolutely ludicrous job coding lots of stuff for Unity. And one of the things that he built was a node-based a node-based visual editor. Excuse me, my voice is going out tonight. He built a node-based visual editor that leverages Unity's action system, where events, it has Unity's built-in types for handling function calls, and function call serialization are basically just the way he does the ins and outs. It works great. It's not the thing that I wanted to do though, so there's a number of reasons for that, which I don't need to get into right now. But yeah, I'm not doing that, so I built my own, and I built it from scratch, which means that I have to do every little piece of it myself. But this does mean that I get to do every little piece of it myself, so that is kind of cool. So let's go to actually dragging around these little nodes on here. See how I get that working. So right now I've got, let's see. So I got them drawing. Oh, and I got them deleting properly because that was the bug that I ran into and fixed. I need to pick the... How am I going to do this? Pick editor transition expression anchor is what I want. Right, and I wrote this differently than the other ones. I didn't need to do that. I can just return null if I need to. Okay, so we're going to go to here and say this is position with anchor. Add it to the old list here. This would be great to clean up at some point, but it's not necessary yet. Is that really a selection? We're going to say selection is null for now. The draggable is going to be drag So I'm going to implement this similarly to how I implemented drag position. means we go in here to the editor transition. Oh, I just need my type. Nope. One of the downsides of using var. Can't skip around in the code as easily. Okay, so draggable position, I don't care about, it's not editor state, I want editor transition. And position is not what I'm calling this, this is expression anchor. Right, and do we want to snap that to the grid? Yeah, probably. I like things being snapped to the grid, it's very satisfying. So there we go. Okay, draggable position gets that. Drag position. Oh, oh no, that's right, it's drag anchor. Should call that drag expression anchor. Let's see if it updated it in here. Neat. Okay, now if I did that properly, right, the last thing is we have to, in this draw wire disk, the color is not correct. Editor, what is this called? Harmony, editor, utility, color. Let's just call it wire color. Okay, so now you can actually see them there, and I should be able to drag them. But I can't. So what's up with that, huh? So let's see if the expression anchor is even being picked. Yep, so if I click that, it's picking the anchor. I'm getting the debug output. The debug output, by the way, is off screen. It's down there. Yes, that's correct. It's actually covered up by me in here. I think this is just better for viewing, so that's where I put that. Most of the time, it's not really an issue, but I'm still experimenting with it, so if you disagree, if you want to see the console up there somewhere, I can figure that out. So the only trick with Unity is you can't rescale it. So I actually have, to get this to work, I have a little custom layout where it's really only, I mean, you can see it in the bottom, like right there. It's really only that section in the top left that's actually on screen, because that's mostly what people care about when they're watching. They don't really care about, seeing your project hierarchy or the test runner or asset store or whatever you have up on the side. Anyway, yeah, if it doesn't work for you, let me know. I'm still trying to figure all this out. Just like I'm trying to figure out why editor transition expression is not being dragged. So this is the cases where I set draggable. Oh, it's because should drag needs to be set to true. Whoops. Forgot about that one. Huh. Well, I thought that was it. Do you need a selection in order to drag? Let's find out. No, it's because the world is being dragged at the same time. Because the world's being dragged at the same time that the selection is being dragged. Of course it's not going to move because the world's moving too. So I need to make sure that should drag? No, should drag is for draggable. It's not for moving the world. I think it should scroll. Yeah, there you go. Ah. And I need to check editor transition with anchor before I check editor transition, because otherwise it's just going to pick the transition one and do that. So I need to stick this as higher priority. And now, like, 5th time's the charm. Oh, hold on. There we go. Look at that. You can drag that around. So it snaps that little thing. I need to draw a little Bezier curve down to there. It's just gonna be a little line for right now, actually, just because that's easier. We're going to middle. Okay, so now I should see some little lines show up here. There you go. Okay, so that's what this is going to be attached to. We can say, ooh, no reference exception. Yeah, that's not a good one. Host view invoke on GUI 634. Okay, so let's go see what's happening at line 634. It's because I have the wrong one. What I need is that one. It was actually relying on the fact that I was picking the editor transition at the same time. So in this case, editor transition is null. Okay, let's reload. There we go. Now I can drag it. All right, cool. So now the next piece will be, I want to draw this little label up near this thing so that I can actually start putting the anchor in the correct spot. So in this case, instead of drawing it middle, we're going to draw at editor transition, expression, anchor. And here we've got, now we're going to put this true up here. There you go. Cool. Put that little label there, put this little label here. Cool. Man, that's satisfying. Okay. So now I need to start, I feel like I need to start computing the actual rects where these things are going to go, and then I can just box those out because I need to have both the rects and the the rects are used for both hit testing on the mouse and drawing, and I can compute them on the fly every single time, but it would be more efficient to compute them once when you're changing things and then store them and just use those computed values each time. The challenge would be that I would then have to update these rectangles for each iteration. Like every time the expression anchor changed, for instance, then I would need to go and update all of the position rects for each of the objects under there. But then the benefit would be that I don't have to recompute them every time I want to do a hit test. It's a classic caching problem. Right now I'm just going to compute them and then I can cache them later instead of relying on the cached version. So in this case, we've got I think this is just going to be the way I do it. The trick is passing the rect data. So some of the rect data needs to be computed from children. Like if you have an AND expression with 6 children, then I want them all to line up next to where the original, like you'll say and then all of these things. It'll make a nice little, expansion out and say, okay, all these things are included in the AND. But then if each one of those is an AND expression that has two more things, they all need to get further apart in order to accommodate the children of those ones, and then the children of those ones. So really what I need is a recursive algorithm that goes through to figure out where each of the labels are, and then comes back up and says, okay, so this is how big you actually are because of your children. So let's see if I can do this. So get the transition expression rectangle. What I want this to return is the full width of all of the descendants and the full height of all of itself and all of the descendants. Because then I can always say, well, I want to align my label in the middle, and then if I have any children, I will tell them, how will this work? Because the children need to know how many siblings they have, and you can't just divide it evenly because they might not take up the same amount of vertical space. Shoot, this is tough. I mean, I could create a bad version that doesn't do that. I could create a version that's just how many go find how many children you have. That's how tall you are. Why does that not work? I think it does work. I think it just involves a lot of calls to this. All right, that's what I'm gonna do because I got the CPU cycles. I can always make this faster later. So really we're just doing this, and then it will make a call to this every single time, which is wildly inefficient, but that's fine. Oh, that's a read-only float, not a const float. Fine. Okay, type label width and the type label height. How tall are you? I can't remember if this is big or small. I'm just gonna make it 65 for now. So if we are a false type, we're just going to return erect of that width and height. Same thing if we're a true, because they're going to be the same. If you are a trigger, then great, you're also going to be the same, although I can imagine computing the trigger's width based on the contents of the trigger. So I'll leave that one as a separate case for now. All right, so now we're into the special ones. And or, actually we'll do the same thing. So I don't need this case. And they're going to have some width and some height to start out with. Then expression dot get transition expression rect of the sub-expression. Okay, good. We're going to get the rect of the sub-expression, and we're going to say, that we just got to add this one. Its widths are maximums. So and then heights are accumulated. So this is really a size. This isn't a rect. Shoot, what is it called? It's not a bounds? No, that's extents. You know what? I know that rect has this property. Yeah, okay, they just use a vector too. I thought it was a special thing. I don't know why I replaced this one. I really want to call it size. So these are vector 2s. And only take 2 of those. So now set that to the max. Height is accumulated by the height. And then we're going to return new vector 2 of width height. And in fact, I'm going to do this. Be consistent about that. Okay, there we go. So now we can actually get the sizes. And this has a default type. I'm going to do a not implemented exception there, just to make sure, because we'd really like to know if I add a new transition expression and I'm not able to render it. So transition expression size. Why are you still upset? Oh, cannot declare instance members, right? Okay, so that's static now. So this will get the full tree of transition expressions, put them together, compute their sizes. I'm trying to think of the cases where it's okay, one has 2 under it, those will be double height, one has 3 under it, that will be triple height. It's the same thing if you just move the label into the other place. Because I'm not actually specifying the labels for these things, I'm just saying, hey, this is how much space this takes up. So what I can do, yeah, I always just align the label in the center. Yeah, I always align the label in the center and then draw over. So I think in this case, yeah, I want a little bit extra space. Make these consts so that when I'm drawing these things, I can draw more little lines between them to show their relationships. Okay. So now I actually need to get, so I'm going to take the size, get transition expression label rect. And this, so for this we need this is the offset that I'm going to build it around. So instead of calling this origin, we're going to call it offset. Because this is always going to be the point at which you center the rect that is this thing. So we'll say this is the offset. This is get transition expression size for this expression. This is going to benefit so much from memoization. If you don't know what that term is, memoization is not memorization, but memoization is when you're writing recursive functions, the ability for a recursive function to identify its inputs, and if the inputs are exactly the same as another set of inputs that it's already returned, just return the return value instead of going through the rest of the recursion. It's a pretty simple and common just optimization technique. So the size is that we're going to say, hey, size.y times 0.5. Let's say negative 0.5. So because we're going to move it up the y-axis by half, and then leave alone on x. And because we just want the label rect, I'm going to need these to be out here. I'm going to make this a get so that it kind of looks constant. Why am I not allowed to do this? Oh, right, it has to be static. That's right. This needs to return, and this needs this inside. I'm just all over the place. Okay, so that is actually unnecessary. We don't even need the size of this because the label rect will always be in exactly the same place. So in this case, we can just return rect of offset x, offset. So this was going to draw them all to the right, and we can worry about flipping them later. I'm just going to draw to the right now to make this work. So minus type label height times 0.5. Its width is type label width. This height is the height. Okay, so that was pretty straightforward. Now we want the one that's slightly more complicated, which is get transition expression with sublabel rect, but I really just got to compute these in line. So you know what I'm going to do? This is no longer going to be a thing. What I'm thinking is I'm going to have to duplicate this code when I go through and implement the ray picking. So in order to like right click or select, sub transition expressions or whatever. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to get around that. I mean, I could do it with a callback, or I could do it with a numerator, or I could just bake it directly into the object. Well, that might be the way to go. But I really don't want to do that right now. Let's see what's involved in doing it. Okay, editor transition expression. This thing is pretty straightforward. The main thing is going to be remembering to update it. I mean, it's not a big deal, but nice. Trigger is used for triggers. Oh, I see. I see why I have that in there. Okay, that's less confusing. So this needs to be this expression. Yep, expression or the expression anchor. This will just need to be recomputed. So in this case, we're going to call this update transition expression rect. This is the offset. So the first thing we need to do, so basically we're going to stick this logic into here because we need to make sure all the children are updated first. So we're going to do this in here, get rid of this one, say right, because the child rect is only going to have its, oh, but hold on, we have to go up and then down. Okay, what I'm saying is we have to go all the way down, march through the entire tree to learn how big things are. And so I think the first pass will be going down and doing that and propagating those values back up. We can store all of that stuff in the rect as a temporary thing, but then we have to come back through, and once we have all that information, we have to do all the offsets. So this actually needs to be in two pieces. This is first compute expression sizes. Yeah, this is what I have to do. Okay, so this is going to be compute expression sizes, and offset is not a part of this. So expression dot rect or dot position equals new rect. This is what I had before. Does it look familiar? 0, 0, and no more vector 2s. Okay. And this is going to be the same. These ones are same thing, but with this baked in. And always return expression position. And why is it important that we, oh, right, it's important that we save it because you need to know this information about your children when you're iterating them. Yeah, okay. This is going to be weird, but we're going to do it. So put that in there. Subsize is width, height, because that is now a rect. Yeah, okay, that's what we want. Now, after computing that size, we need to go in. Okay, and this is actually going to set the offset. So this calculation will go through and actually propagate all the stuff down. So the first one that we wanted, do I still have this up here somewhere? My old label rect? Dang, I deleted it. Oh well, not that big a deal. So the first one that I'm going to set is is for whatever this is, the expression's position is going to be offset x. Yeah, this is going to work. Offset y minus expression position height times 0.5. So it's going to move it up, and then its current width and height. Okay, so that will set this one and it will always work. Dang, it's not the size. Why? These ones, I'm being too clever here. It is. This is just the label because each one has a label. Type label height, and then this one is. You know what we can use the X for? You know, yeah, we can actually do this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do with the X positions, or X and Y positions. Oh, is this? Okay, yeah, X, Y width height. So space between label, the width plus the type label width plus the width. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, no, the height is not the height plus the type label height. It's the max of the height and the type label height. So I'm using the X and Y positions of this rect here to cache the values that I am going to compute for the width and height. So that in the case of a trigger, for instance, so like let's say I'm just gonna make triggers twice as wide. In the case of a trigger, I can compute the size of the trigger based on the label size and have that just propagate through the rest of the system intelligently. And that's not something I could do if I didn't have that much data. So that's what I'm gonna use those pieces for. But that does mean I need to do this expression dot position. Is it origin? Offset? Is offset correct? I know that there's got to be an equivalent for size. Oh, it's just position. Right, it's position, not center. Okay, so then label size Y, label size Y, label size X. So that's where the actual label for this expression is going to go. But then the next one is going to be each of the sublabels. I need to call this function again for them and pass them their own offsets in order to figure this out. So we're going to say the size height so far. This is where I need the space between labels. Okay, so I'm going to say the offsets X position plus the label size, the label's width plus the little space that I added there gives me the position for the sub offset. The sub offset Y is going to be a per sub expression rendered piece here. And so I don't actually need to use the type, but what I can do here is say set up a debug statement. Assert that this is of an expected type, because otherwise we have problems. Because you shouldn't have a sub-expression for a trigger or something. Okay, so that goes there. I don't need to compute your sub size like I did over there. So, because what I'm going to do here is say the height so far is the offset to the top of your rectangle. So that means that height so far plus your rectangle size over 2, which sub-expression, I'm going to split these out for readability. We're going to have sub-expression label size, just say sub-label size, and sub-total size. So sub-label or sub-total size times half. So the height that you've already accumulated plus halfway down that one is going to be that. And then we're going to say compute transition expression positions based on a vector 2 that is sub-offset x, and then that as the sub-offset y for sub-expression. And then down here, we're going to say subtotal, nope, height so far adds the subtotal size dot y. There you go. And that should do it. So in order to update the sizes, expression positions for editor transition, we need to say compute transition expression sizes for that expression, and then update compute transition expression positions for, again, this expression, but at the offset editor transition dot expression anchor. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to make these ones private, because there's no reason to call those outside of this function, because they won't do the right thing. Like, one relies on the other one having executed properly. So up here, update expression position is just, I'm just going to call this right here on the expression, and then this is, so that offset is this is actually for drawing these things. So now I need to go in, I need to go in and actually do the drawing. So offset is just going to be the global offset to get it to render in the right location. Oh, if I do this recursive, then it's going to update the expression positions every time. Where does this get called? Oh, this just gets called there, and then out here. Okay, so we're going to call I'm just going to call that there. So the expression anchor doesn't have anything to do with this. It's actually just inside of the object. And I think that this actually should be as well. I'm going to make the recursive piece inside of here. Can I do that? Well, I need to know where the middle is in order to draw that piece. I'll worry about that later. This is just going to be the recursive piece for right now. So here is, this makes this super easy, because all I do is just say that the rect is new rect based on offset x plus expression dot I just have to offset the position by the incoming offset. Position dot spin, right? Oh no, that's okay. Gonna be negative. Yeah, is that gonna call me deprecated? Oh, right, because I only have two parameters. Y plus position dot y, position dot width, position dot height. Okay, that'll do that. Okay, that'll draw each of these rects. And then in here, the offset stays the same. I just draw the same sub-expression, except that for each of these, I would like to draw those little lines going out. So let's do a let's just handles.draw line. Fine. That's ugly, but it'll work. Offset plus sub-expression position. I should really write just a function to get this. This should be a rect extension. There you go, halfway there. Now I just need to replace this one for X max and call this one correctly. Left center of, oh, right center of my rect to offset plus the left center. So my rect is adjusted, whereas theirs is not. So that's why I have to do this. Theirs being, the sub-expression's rect has not yet been adjusted for the offset coordinates. So I got to do this. But then when I draw this, then it will be. So this will draw this line, this will draw this line. And if all goes well, this will just magically work because that's how coding goes, right? Right. Expression cannot convert. Oh, I don't have to tell you the expression. You just update it. Okay. Let's see what I broke. It's still drawing things. It appears to still be drawing things. Well, that's confusing. Huh. Well, you don't see that happen every day. Let's build a more complicated expression and see what happens. So I have to do this manually, so this might take me a second to figure out. Because I haven't built the editor for this yet, and like it's getting a little late already. I'm probably not going to do this tonight, so I'm just going to do this by hand. So for this transition that goes, hey, there's my expression anchor. This goes from 0 to 1, or from 1 to 0. Right, because entry state is 1, we decided. So for this one, I'm going to turn this, no, I'm going to turn the next one. Turn the next one into a, let's call this an AND. And we're going to take the sub-expressions list. We're going to put, and we're going to put some truth in here. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to have a sub-expression that is true. And then we're going to have another sub-expression that is true. Nah, let's make it different. Call it false. Okay, so I do that. I'm going to take this, put it in there, cross my fingers, and see that it didn't reload. Maybe I have to reload this asset. refresh, re-import. Let's see if it ended up saving the stuff that I actually put in. That's what I mean. You really not going to show me this stuff off screen? Okay, fine. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it keeps going, so it doesn't want to show it to me. I mean, I can only assume that it did it correctly. But this is the one that should have sub-expressions on it. So let me go in. I'm going to show this in the Explorer. Right, because it's part of my prefab. I need to save the project, otherwise I don't know if that will actually show up correctly. Open it in here, and then I'm going to go down and see that this mess is, because it decided to encode all of that stuff. Alright, so do you have sub-expressions? No. You have sub-expressions? No. The Telltale giveaway is going to be true. Okay, so it's not getting saved into there. Well, that's a shame. Wait, no. No, that's right. It's not being saved into there. So what is it being overwritten by? I might have to close this scene as the way of doing this. So we're going to do a new scene, and then we're going to open this asset. This is a peculiarity of the way that I designed this, that it works this way. Okay, well, it's staying now. Because basically I have it updating, I have this set of assets tied to the prefab instead of being tied to something else, and they are being used by me to do an alternate serialization path that stores all of the Harmony data. So you're not really supposed to do it that way, but I'm doing it that way so that I have complete control over how stuff gets serialized for this, and so that I can serialize things that are not necessarily Unity objects. Okay, are we still complaining? You know what? Fine. Fine. In order to test this, I'm just going to write something to create endless numbers of ands and expressions. Because what I tried to add manually, let's do a quick debug to see if it's doing it, which I don't think it is. Yeah, it definitely isn't, because it's being drawn and it's not hitting the and expression at all. So I'm going to write just a little bit of code here that when... Yep, okay, so when I click on something to drag it, where was that? That was pick editor port. There we go. Pick editor transition with anchor. When it does that, it's also going to pop on a... I can do better. Context menu. So if it's this, and then we can say pick editor transition expression anchor. Then I can just build a little context menu for it. So if it's none of those, do your normal stuff. Otherwise, So what I'm doing here is I'm building onto the menu so that when I right click that little circle over there, I can pop up a menu that lets me modify the expression tree so that I can actually test my code to see if it works. So we're going to say add and. Oh, no, we actually need to pass editor transition with anchor. There we go. Okay. Still haven't implemented that. Let's cast it over into the correct type, which is not an index. It is an editor transition object. So the expression anchor, oh no, the expression is now going to be new expression, which consists of, this is going to be gross, but you guys are going to love it. I'm just going to take the old expression and stick it in here. So type equals editor transition expression type dot and then I'm going to say sub expressions equals new list editor transition expression of the old expression, and then maybe a true. Yeah, I'm going to throw a true in there as well. Public read only. Actually, true. It has to create a new one each time, because otherwise there's going to be squirrely stuff that happens. All the rest of that stuff doesn't matter. It's just true. Make one for false as well. And what the hell? I'll make one for trigger. Cannot be initialized. This is not a field or property. Oh, it definitely is. Oh, but it's also... Fine, I won't do these as accessors. I mean, I guess it's a little deceptive to do them as accessors anyway, because if you do, then... and people don't expect that it's actually allocating an object, sometimes they'll just end up calling it over and over and over again. And that's where you get memory problems from. So in this case, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say editor transition expression dot true, get true, and those are going to be the sub expressions for debug add expert and. And now when I go back over here, if I right click on one of these little things, oh hello, that's a problem. I've got sub expressions in something that is not an and or type. Let's find out what's going on. Not exactly sure how that happened. So in this case, this is a, come on debugger. The expression is false. The expression is a false. Oh, set dealie on the right. I wonder if that actually worked. I wonder if my thing worked. And somehow it just got in the wrong place? I don't know. Okay, what we're gonna do though, we're gonna delete that. Because that was just wrong. And we're gonna go here, create a transition to this one, pull this piece up there. We're gonna say add an and. Do you see that? It's all screwed up, but do you see that? Now we have an and with two little trues coming out of it. I don't know why they're stacked like this. I have no idea why it looks this way. It should not look like this. That's pretty cool though, right? I think that's pretty cool. So why would it look like this? I don't even care. Let's just see what happens if I do it again. Oh, look at that. Look how cool that is. Look how broken that is. Why is it that broken? Why is it that? No, it's not because it's not recomputing, because obviously it's recomputing this way, but it's doing something this way that is just wrong. All right, I really want to fix this, but I think this is probably going to be the last thing that I do. So I'm going to take a quick break, get some water, and come back and make this work. See y'all in a minute. Hello again, and I am very excited about the stuff that I was just finishing up here before the break. If you guys are just coming back, this is the last piece of the evening. I'm going to probably do another, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, something like that, to try and finish up this last piece. But if you haven't been here before, or if you're just catching in from YouTube or something like that, my name's Carl, and this is Pretty Simple Fun. I am trying to build a little community for people who make games in their spare time. And we're just hanging out tonight working on a game tool that I'm building for Unity so that I can start doing game jams faster and all that sort of thing. So let's get back to it. And this thing resized again. I guess whatever control I'm using to change screens here is causing this thing to break. All right. So the last piece, to catch up to where we were, I was able to get this little transition expression drawer set up. There's some stuff we got to fix, obviously. It's not orienting itself properly, and it's drawing the lines in a dark color, or in a light color, which is the default handle color. So if we can fix that, that is a little too big. Is it still visible? Yeah, that's good. Okay, so if we can fix that, then we'll be done for the evening. So let's see. This debug expert and right, it's the I'm calling into update expression. I know that this is the thing that actually calls it before it draws transition expression. Here we go. And the code that I want to steal is this wire color code. I'm just gonna put this in here for now, and we're gonna pretend like this is solved. I'm just gonna do this later, because really I should wrap all this stuff into one piece, and then it should just draw it a little bit easier. I'm thinking about making these transitions follow the grid line as well, and not just be straight from one thing to another. There's like a bunch of changes I want to make, but so for right now, what I'm saying is that this will just work. Bam, look at that, fixed forever. So it looks like these labels are being drawn center aligned. I was kind of expecting them to be drawn left aligned and also with a background. So those might be things to fix. Now, the vertical alignment is correct. Oh, the vertical sub-alignment, because each of these is like slightly bigger, which is, hello, which is correct. So, but it's not respecting this piece, it's not respecting the initial y. Oh, you know what I bet? I bet that this is y, is around y equals 0 on the first line because I'm not adding in the y of the parent. So let's see if that's the case. So we're drawing the transition expression. Oh right, this isn't in drawing it, this is actually in computing it. So each of the subs offsets needs to take in compute expression positions the height so far, which it does, but it doesn't actually take in offset dot y. I think that's going to be too much. You know what, let's just try it and see what happens. Because it can't be divided by 2. Okay, well now we just have the opposite problem. So it should at least all be anchored. Yeah, so it's all anchored properly now. But what I really want is for it to be nice and organized there. So for the first one, let me think through how I did this again. Its own offset is its center. So actually we want offset.y. We want height so far to be the negative total size and then half of that. Yeah, I think that's right. Why does it keep doing this? There we go. And I think that's correct. I'm really gonna have to fix that jumping thing. It's super bothering me. So, but I think this is correct because let's delete this transition and just start a new one and watch it build. So I do this, pull this one up to here. We have a nice little true, which is even. I add one and, nice and even. I have true and true. Add another and so now it's becoming unbalanced because this side is bigger than this side. So this pushes this one down a little bit further. That's fine. Another and. Let's do a couple more just for good measure. There you go. There you go. That's that looks like that works. So now I think the labels just maybe don't need to be quite so wide. I can adjust that a little bit. And actually each one can have its own width. So for instance, if I wanted ands and ors to have a smaller width, then I could do that. The thought that just went through my head, I'm doing that a lot tonight. The thought that went through my head is that if you have labels of varying widths in the same column, you want to take the biggest one of those. I'm wondering if I'm doing that. Which I'm doing that with total width. I'm not doing that with label width. Yeah, which I need the label width here. Yeah, I need the label width to also be the max. It's a good thing I decided to do that little extra piece. Oh, actually label width, no, this is wrong. This is label width of its children, not its siblings. And I need label width of the siblings in order to compute its own width, which means that you have to do that during propagation, not here. Okay, so I gotta remove all that. So what this requires here is a just a quick iteration through all of these to see what their label widths are, which is this is going to be sublabel size, sublabel size.width, the max of that width and the label width. And then this label width is the actual width of the subrect, which means I got to pass that down because I got to tell you what your minimum width is. So this is going to be your min label width is the label width of the subexpression siblings. And in this case, this thing's saying, hey, my label size.x is that label size, but the sub offsets that's what that is. This is I should actually just do this with a replace. Oops. Hello. Okay. There you go. So now that's exactly what it is. And this first time we call it, the sibling max label width is going to have to be just explicitly set to 0 because it doesn't have any siblings, so that's fine. Actually, it's not set to 0, it's set to type label width. If we set it to 0, then the first one's not going to have any size. There you go. Okay. So now I can have, this should have no change. Other than, of course, screwing up my view again. All right, so that's good. So now this time, when I go through, I can assign, hey, guess what? I want the label width of ands and ors. What is my table label width right now? 65. I want them to be 35. And this is the type label width true and false. Those are still going to be super wide. So this shouldn't change anything except the first one. Yeah, it worked. I mean, it's not like lining these things up in the same place, but I mean, it will. That's interesting. That can cause branches of the tree to, I don't know if I like that, and cause branches of the tree to kind of diverge in depth. I mean, it works. Like, that's the way it should look. So if I just make them all the same size, then this problem kind of goes away, and I don't really need that children max label width thing. But I'm just going to make a note of that and leave it for now. If all labels are the same size, we don't need this. Width, we don't need this. Okay, so those are all the widths. So now, all right, now back to the way it was before, which I kind of like. So now I just really need to actually draw these things using a Good label. Maybe mini button. Is mini button what I'm looking for? Let's find out. See what these ants look like. I mean, it's not wrong. It does look a little weird. I remember there being a style that I really liked for this, but I cannot remember what it is. Object field thumb? No, that's the little thing on the side. I swore it was centered gray mini label. I really just need something with a background. Which, I mean, this gives me. It's not great, but it gives it to me. Yeah, I'll figure out the styling next time. I can get this little, there's this little add-on you can get that lets you search for editor mode styles. That's kind of how I found some of the rest of these. And so I'll just whip that out again and see if I can find a better style for those. So for right now, I'm going to move them all over into this weird mini button thing, because at least it's a little more visible, even if I don't like how it looks. Okay, because this will give me then for the next step when I do that, the ability to say, oh, I really want to right click on this one. I want to right click on this one and do that kind of operation to it. That way I can, add and remove nodes from this expression tree, and then, yeah, do that from there. So the idea is that next time I will be able to say, hey, right click, add a trigger here, and it will add a trigger piece underneath it. Then I'll be able to type in trigger next, and then finally it will be able to use this expression to reference the trigger to check to see if the trigger is set to only take this transition when that trigger is set. So yeah, that's what we did today. We got this little piece up here going, this little branching tree thing, which I'm still just so pleased about that. This actually worked out super well. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for me for tonight. Make sure you all are following along at Twitch. Well, so here at twitch.tv/prettysimplefun, also over on Twitter, posting some more updates about, what I'm working on, that sort of thing. And yeah, I will see y'all next time.